I am terrible at standardized testing. Luckily, I didn't have to take the SAT because I went to school in Canada. But if you want your kids to go to a top college in the States, you can't skip this process. Ronald Poe, the founder of a Hong Kong tutoring center, says that reading is the best way to study for the SATs.
Most students don't read, so I'd probably say the best thing to do is you really have to understand how the students work. Some students work really well with flashcards. Some students need to read words in context.
Thanks to technology, there's another way that today's students might actually like, using a smartphone. Here are some of the vocabulary apps that can be alternatives to repetitive practice tests and flashcards. This is Get a Plan, developed by Rohan Pasari and his company. What you do is play 4 different games using 500 SAT tested words.
So we ensure that these games make it fun for the students, but importantly also help them to learn the words in context.
Before you play, you enter the names of schools you want to apply to. Get a Plan figures out how much time is left before your SAT test, tests your vocabulary, and tells you whether your score will be high enough to get into those schools. The game's algorithm uses the information to design a program just for you.
How a student who's very strong in their vocabulary would interact with the app will be very different from a student who's not so strong in their vocabulary.
That means weaker students will face more repetition, being tested on a specific word twice as much as stronger students. Then the gaming begins. You can play 4 different types of games, like this cloud game where you have to find 2 synonyms for the word. And the results are promising. One user achieved a perfect score in the vocabulary section of the SAT.
Makes the memorization, in a sense, much simpler compared to the traditional way of learning and ticking it off a list.
The first 100 words are free. If you want the full package of 500 words, it costs $25. While you can play Get a Plan on your smartphone, it's not an app yet, unlike this one. This is SAT Word Slam. If games aren't your thing, how about poetry? Each word is used in a short, funny poem that teaches definitions like this one.
Expunging means erasing, wiping out, destroying. Why not just expunge the things you do that are annoying? There are people in this world I wish we could expunge. Paris Hilton, for example, it's time she took a plunge.
The app gives you a remember this, a mnemonic clue.
Remember this. To expunge is to wipe away as you would with a sponge. And that's sort of the key to my system, I think.
One of her former users used the app to study, even when she's on the road.
It doesn't feel like a burden. I think it just puts a fun spin on it. Because it's on an app, you can literally do it whenever you want.
When you think you know the word, the app tests you, and you can customize your own playlist of words. But Android users will have to wait a little while before they can get their hands on the app. It's only available to iOS users for now. The first 25 words are free. Then you need to pay $3.99. The app has 800 words in total. But there's a debate on whether vocabulary apps like this will be relevant anymore. The SAT is changing its format in 2016.
In its current form, you have sentence completions. In the new one, you still have what we call word and context questions. And so the vocabulary, they're not really abstract words that you never encounter in real life. And you can basically figure out the meaning of the words even as you read the passage. It should actually be much easier than the existing reading section.
I think the new SAT is going to be very difficult, more difficult than the one that they're taking now. It was a congresswoman, she was speaking to some committee. So they used that passage on the SAT. Kids have to read that, and within that one passage, the vocabulary words solemnness, subversion, impeachment, astute, bridal, inquest, tyrannical, maxim, suffice, revolted. They're just loaded with vocabulary that kids have to understand in context.
It's still too early to tell whether the new SAT format will be harder. But if you want to boost your children's vocabulary, try both apps and see which one works better for them. Or you can just make your kids read the Wall Street Journal.